Commandment number 1 is thou shalt specialise. If we are not specialists, then we cannot be seen as more of an expert than our competition. Without specialisation, we'll be viewed as one of many possible options. And this positioning gives us little authority with clients and no power for charging the actual value that we bring. Recognising the fact that clients will be willing to pay more for deep expertise. Expertise is the only something that we can achieve by narrowing our focus and separating ourselves from the competition. Recently in Brisbane, the croissant specialist Lune opened a store. Lune charges a premium for their croissants and has a line of people waiting out the front of their store to buy some every morning. Croissants, their specialisation. They master it, they own it, and they control the premium market for it for that reason. And I mean, where would you prefer to get a croissant from? The Corner Baker's Delight or from Lune, the croissant specialists? When we make the decision to specialise, we change our positioning in the marketplace. The actual action of specialisation does not position you against the competition, but it reduces any parallels or actual thoughts of you versus the competition. Marty Neumeier, the author and graphic designer who has worked with some of the largest companies in the world, tells the story of his successful specialisation early on in his career. As a broke designer, he recognised the need to separate himself from the competition. After all, how could he beat firms that are positioned to take on and beat, a global design firm like Landor? Well, located in Silicon Valley, he specialised in the design of business software product packaging. Not software product packaging or just business or consumer product packaging. He went to an uncomfortably narrow place of business software product packaging. He successfully focused his brand and business on a narrow piece of the market that he was able to control. This work that he was able to do was able to back his claim of expertise because of how he specialised. But what are the benefits of actually specialising maybe for your business, even if you're someone like an accountant? Well, the benefits are things like you have a better sales advantage, you have a reduced level of competition because you're viewed differently, you can increase your pricing and you get control of your niche market. You also get increased customer engagement. The clients actually now see you as an expert for just a generalist, someone who's an order taker. One which is comfortable and an obvious choice compared to just picking unsettling alternative that's a generalist. Specialisation and narrowing our focus seems counterintuitive. Instinctively, we feel that specialisation will ultimately lead to fewer customers. The fact is, rarely is this the problem. More often than not, businesses stop before they specialise enough, and they never reach the specialisation required to command the market control that comes from having real deep expertise. I want to go through and show you this diagram and this tool now that we can use to sort of exemplify how you should be specialising and where people often stop. You should probably print this off and use this as a bit of a tool in the future. So let's go through model 1. Let me sort of demonstrate how this is relevant to your business and what most businesses do and what you need to be doing. So if we look over at this red line here, this is where most businesses currently exist. And this is the area that you would describe as most businesses. If we're talking about a gym, you're talking about a Anytime Fitness, and therefore they fit into the range of most Anytime Fitnesses. There's no real specialisation there. If you're talking about accountant, they offer typical services. They say, we'll do your tax returns, and they offer those sort of advisory roles. And as you can see, there's no real any specialisation there. And as you sort of look to differentiate yourself and become more of an expert and you want to charge more, this is done off building your expertise in a particular field. And in order to build your expertise in a particular field, you need to think about all the different services that you are offering, and the depth that you go into one of those services is the depth of expertise or specialization that you have. So the average business looks like this. They have all their sort of services they offer, but they're not really leaning towards any service. Whereas someone that specializes will still have those other services that other organizations are offering, but they'll go through and they'll develop a real specialty or expertise on one of their services. And by doing this, what they've done is really separate themselves, because anyone who's coming looking for that particular service is going to come to them. They're not going to go to this other business, which is nowhere near as an expert at it, are they? And they're definitely not going to charge. They're definitely not going to pay this business as much, because they don't have the expertise that this business obviously does in that area. Now, the great thing about this is once you get people in the door with this level, with this service, that you have great expertise, there's no reason why you then can't offer them these other services once you've built that relationship. But by specializing, you're able to go into that area of getting people in through your door on that area, on that service that you really have built deep specialization with. So if we go back to this main diagram, you can see that most businesses are back here, and you can see that when people look to specialize, you can see this red dotted line. That unfortunately is where most people reach when they look to specialize. They don't quite make it far enough in order to really specialize and distinguish themselves. And so they've reached this weird zone where they're, not quite specialized enough to really get the benefit, which would be up here, as you can see this red line, but they're, specialized a little bit to be distinguished, but not to get any real benefit from it. So if we go to this next phase and you see the red line with the green lines through it, this is really the ideal area. It's where you have something to say. It's where you can create a brand or something which is different and stands out for a good reason, and somewhere where you've built real expertise. If you keep going and you see this area, this is the area that you want to avoid. I have to say that not many businesses actually get to this area, but this is where there's inefficient opportunity. You can see it's closed in too much on the triangle, and you've no longer got the market space to be able to actually make a real profitable business out of it, because it's too specialized. There's just not enough businesses looking for that level of specialty and that level of service that you're going to be offering. So in order to nail this area, you need to get to this. You need to find this area which is a blue ocean that you can really specialize and get the benefit of specializing from, without going too deep to a point where there's an inefficient level of market space. Unfortunately, that's not really a concern for most businesses, because most businesses, when they look to specialize, they reach this dotted line. They don't specialize enough, and they think that this area will be enough to really distinguish themselves, and it just doesn't. So they don't really get the impact they're looking for, and therefore they don't get the benefits. So that's the model of really showcasing how you should be specializing. I hope that helps. The last piece of advice I'd give around this is that when you're thinking about specializing, the best advice that I was given, particularly from a marketing and branding perspective, is go to a point where it feels uncomfortable. Go to a point where you feel like what Marty Newmeyer did in my example, is that you go to a point that sort of stands out and goes, oh, is that enough? That's probably actually the right area. That's probably the right space that you've been specialized to a point where you're going to be a market leader in that area.